Oh, there he is.
I like the beard and mustache.
I had to do something while I was whiling the time away. Welcome, welcome.
I think you should leave it.
Yeah, I like it. I like the way it curled up on the ends. That was, and it matches my color scheme back here too. So
Yeah, I like that. So my name is Frank Morales, and I'm a business development coach and mentor. What does that mean? Well, it means that I work with both business leaders, managers, CXOs, owners of businesses, presidents, vice presidents, as well as business development folks. I work different tracks with people. On the management side, I work with, again, business owners and CXOs on team building, on creating a culture for the company, and that's company-wide, not just in terms of sales and customer service, but in terms of production and admin as well. So it's all about company culture and having a common language. By the same token, I work with business development folks. If you think about what Art and I really talk about, Art talks about bringing people to a business. With me, I carry them over the threshold. So I teach people how to work with folks on understanding their world and creating a culture of questioning and active listening to understand their customers' world so they can better serve them. So that's what I do in a nutshell, through ongoing reinforcement training, coaching, and long-term mentoring. I work with changing people's attitudes, helping them develop new behaviors, and help them learn new skills and techniques so they can work smarter instead of harder.
And I'm the founder and principal consultant at The Art of Standing Out. And The Art of Standing Out is how each of us steps up to the plate and stands out from the crowd and rises above the noise of all our competitors. In my practice, what's central to the work that I do is what is called human-centered design. Human-centered design says that everything you do, whether you're building a chair for a sumo wrestler or you've built a remedy for some illness in the world, you only begin working on that project when you are clear on who you're doing that work for. When you know their narrative as well they know their narrative themselves. And that notion of human-centered design and understanding your ideal prospects or your ideal buyer's narrative leads me to the second pillar in my practice, which is storytelling. Because when you know their narrative and you know their story as well as they do, and then you have a solution that solves some problem that keeps them awake at night, you can take your product story and insert it right into the narrative of your ideal buyer. That works when you're selling a product or solution or a service. It also works when you're a leader in an organization and you're trying to build a culture. What's the narrative of the culture that you're building? When you are trying to call your internal team or your external partners to join you to go mount an initiative, to have an amazing event, how do you call them to action? How do you inspire them to do more than they thought they could on behalf of your enterprise? Storytelling. But only tell those stories after you know their narrative and what's going to move them to take action. So here at The Art of Standing Out, we use design thinking, storytelling, to help you market ideas better so you can sell more products, services, and solutions. That's The Art of Standing Out. And I'm excited to join Frank in these conversations because we both talk about leadership, because I believe everything we do whether it's getting your dog to sit and stay, or getting a company with 1,000 employees to go forward and conquer the world.
Right. And if I can just add to what you've just said, Art, in a sense, what you talk about is the why behind the what, and what I talk about is the how behind the what. So, to an extent, with your storytelling, you'll extract through questioning, and the creation of that company culture. The why. Simon Sinek's why behind the what. Being able to understand better, that company culture, so that you can articulate it better. And then part of what I talk about is, how do you get your people to buy into that company culture, so that they can truly internalize it and let it become part of their DNA, so that everybody's rowing in the same direction.
And I can just build on that, and I think this is why Frank and I have come together to create this video blog and podcast for the audiences that we serve, because we're bookends. I do spend a lot of time on the why. Why we do anything means everything. But there's a great book called How, written by Dov, D-O-V, Seidman. And Dov says, having your why is important, but how you do anything means everything. Because just having a why and not executing a plan,
right,
and not doing it well, won't serve your business. So having a why and a how are very important.
Exactly. And it's funny, because one of the things that I talk about is, when you talk about that how, is, and it's funny because this is one of the things that really trip up a lot of people. A lot of people that go to seminars or read books, they'll get very excited about a particular idea, and they're thrilled by the concept of this idea and doing this, and then actually carrying out that idea, or that plan becomes difficult, because there are a couple of missing pieces. Going back to that how that Art just talked about, part of what I talk about and work with people on is, first establishing certain goals, and Art will do this as well. On one side, I do it on another side, and what I talk about is actually establishing very specific, clear-cut goals, and actually big, hairy, audacious goals, and again, all of your SMART goals, right? Making sure that they're realistic goals. But once you actually establish your goals, and going beyond that, and even that can be a workshop in and of itself, of establishing and creating what your goals are. Even beyond that, then, is you have to create a plan for achieving those goals. And a lot of people fall short. They'll first off, they'll either not have goals, very specific goals, and when I say goals, they're both short-term and long-term goals. You have to look at your long-term goals that are tied directly to your short-term goals, and vice versa. In other words, if you're not paying attention to your short-term goals and making sure that those short-term goals will help you achieve those long-term goals, then you're shooting yourself in the foot. By the same token, you have to focus on those long-term goals and look at it strategically and kind of backwards, to make sure that you understand what each of the short-term goals should be to help you achieve, to lead up to that long-term goal. And then even beyond that, to then create a plan, a strategic and tactical plan that'll help you achieve those goals. And once you have that plan, to be able to then fine tune that plan. And the only way you fine tune that plan is by tracking that plan. So if you think about it, that triangle is, creating the plan, tracking that plan, on a day by day basis, and then fine tuning that plan.
It's funny you were talking. It made me think about the Nike slogan, "Just do it."
Yep.
And I can't tell you how many businesses that I've encountered that are successful.
Mm-hmm.
They don't really have a business plan. They might subscribe to the fail fast. Just do it, fail. Just do it, fail.
Yes.
But early in my career, I had an executive that pulled me aside and said it was an old adage, an old bromide, an old saying that he gave me that stuck with me to this day. And I'm sure all of us have heard it. It's failing the plan is planning to fail.
Yes.
And in a microwave mindset society where we've got the attention span of a goldfish, planning is hard.
Yes.
But so is success. And failing the plan is planning to fail. You'll achieve some success. You can be a business and never create a business plan. But if you want to achieve great success, if you want to solve problems that are bigger than yourself, make meaning in the world.
Right. And I'll add another one. I'll add another one to that. As I like to say, if you don't have a plan, you're part of someone else's plan. So it's very important for us to get up in the morning and have a plan. How many of us fall prey to someone else's plan because we've failed to plan, to have a plan. And again, that goes back to our goals, having clearly defined goals, both short-term and long-term.
And it's, I'm sorry, Dick. I'm sorry.
No, just to finish the thought, I'm a long distance runner. I've run a few marathons, and I've coached people run marathons. And one of the things that I always tell people is that you really have to think not just in terms of those 26.5 miles, but rather everything that leads up to that. Sure, running the marathon is a goal, and sure, beyond that goal, it's actually crossing that finish line. That's the incentive. That's the visual that gets me there. But having that goal, then I've got to look at what is going to lead up to that goal in terms of how much I'm running every day, every week, every month, every quarter, how I'm tracking that, the things that I'm doing, the things that I'm not doing, the things that not only have to do with the running, the actual running, but and those behaviors, but those things that will actually support that, the infrastructure for that, like eating certain things, not eating certain things, resting, cross-training, and so on. So it's more of a strategic approach, and as well as tactical approach. What shoes am I wearing? What clothing am I wearing? Et cetera, et cetera. And it's the same thing I've found with whether it's building a business or buying a house. You're buying your first house, your first condo, and as Art just mentioned, and I've certainly worked with over 500 companies where I've seen a lot of companies that don't have strategic plans or strategic goals that they want to accomplish. Oftentimes, I'll have a company that'll come to me and say, a business owner that wants to sell his company within the next few years. And you ask him what his plan is, and he just shrugs his or her shoulders and says, well, I don't know, I guess when it's time, I'll just put it up for sale.
That's
not a plan. That's not a plan. Or the more common one is, hey Frank, I've got to hire some folks because we've got to up our sales. Okay, so what's your plan? I don't know. We'll put an ad in the paper. We'll hire
We could have a Frank Art of Business Solutions discussion just on old phrases and sayings, because that one makes me think of hope is not a strategy.
Yeah, hope is not a strategy.
But I wanted to build on earlier I said that failing to plan is planning to fail, and I was picking on this notion of fail fast, which is like Simon Sinek. Everybody is still infatuated with Simon Sinek. People don't buy what you do or how you do it. They buy why you do it. Yep. Everybody wants to get to their why. When I read the book, How You Do Anything Means Everything, I changed. Mm-hmm. That means I'm willing to be dynamic. I could have rejected the book and said, no, I'm betting on Sinek. I don't know about this other guy. Yeah. I'm going to go with why.
Yeah.
But there's an old military expression, and it's no battle plan survives contact with the enemy. Mm. And so if you have a plan and you're not dynamic, and you're not willing to say why is on the left, how's on the right, and together they make magic. Just having your why, is that really enough? Right? Now that's what I believe. And not everybody in the world will believe what I believe. But what I believe is that the people that do believe what I believe, which is what Simon Sinek does, that how and why together is where the power lies. Mm-hmm. That's my tribe. That's the audience that I'm in service to, because I know I bring value to them and I can change the trajectory of their business. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure that Frank would agree. I mean, we talk a lot about planning and having a vision, and thinking long range and short range. But like the generals say, the best battle plan has to be dynamic, because when it meets the enemy, you just don't know what's going to happen. And in the world we live in a time where we're dealing with the most empowered consumers that have ever lived. I can take my smart device and I can ask Siri, or okay Google, or okay Alexa, who makes the best electric car? And Siri can give me an answer. So can Google and so can Alexa. So I don't need to call your company the way I did 10 years ago. You say, I hear you make electric cars. Can you tell me why yours is the best? Mm-hmm. So when the consumer has the power, and that's the consumer, whether it's a team of 15 people on the 25th floor of an enterprise that you're calling on, or it's the individual, B2B or B2C, mm-hmm. They're both empowered. They're both using big data the same way we are. So the difference comes in doing the work to know who your audience is, to know their narrative as well as they do. So you know what keeps them awake at night, and you know when they celebrate and they're popping champagne. Mm-hmm. If you don't know those things, and you're trying to sell a product, service, or solution to them, or call them to action in any way, how's that going to work if you don't really know them? Yeah. And the plan holds all of the processes that you use to do the work to understand that audience. So not you can sell something to them, but you can solve their problems. And oh, by the way, you get paid for doing that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and to add to that, it's funny because one of the first questions I ask my clients is, how has technology affected them in the last 10 to 15 years? How are their suspects, prospects, and customers treating them differently in the last 10 to 15 years? And of course, most of them answer pretty much the same way, that there's more competition nowadays, that they're being treated more like a commodity, that people are shopping them. They're treating them like a column in their spreadsheet. That consumers are much more educated, that they'll come to them with a library full of information. And it's funny. I mean, none of us are buying the same way that we used to anymore anyway. And if you're going to go buy a car, typically you're gonna do your research. And that's just it. We've become a society of researchers. I'll ask one of my sons a question about something or other, and within seconds, they'll grab their phone. If they don't know the answer, they'll grab their phone. And we've all become these phenomenal researchers, and we'll shop. We'll find out as much as we possibly can about the company, about the product, about the service, about the people, and so on. So the reason I bring that up is that on the flip side, for those people that I help, those people that Art helps, the question becomes, we know all that as consumers, we know all that, but as people that have to sell products and services, we're on that end, we have to be cautious. We have to be careful that we're not that last horse buggy whip manufacturer that that hasn't gotten it, that started off saying, those mechanical contraptions, now they're never going to catch on. People have their relationship with their horses, in their buggies. Those things, they're mechanical. They'll never catch on. That'll never take off.
Yeah.
And a few short years later, does that person then turn around and say, "Well, what happened?" And again, if things are going the way they're going, then what's the definition of insanity? Right? So what we've got to be able to do is change our methodology, change our mindset. And I love another book that I think you and I are going to be recommending a lot of books.
Probably.
The Mindset book, where the author talks about people that have one of two mindsets: the growth mindset and the fixed mindset. And the growth mindset is that mindset that will that will accept that everything does have to change, everything does change, and I've got to change along with things, because that is the one true constant in the universe, change. And I've got to be able to grow with things and accept that things can and do change, and that if I don't change along with them, I will snap, I will break. So I can be that that oak tree, or I can be that palm tree, that is going to bend with the wind as opposed to breaking. And then the fixed mindset, the fixed mindset is that mindset that that is afraid of change, that that thinks that things are the way they are, as are they are, and will never change, can never change, and their self-limiting beliefs, self-limiting thoughts, where they'll think to themselves, and I see this all the time. I'll see someone that's on the treadmill constantly training, and I'll say, "Hey, have you ever run a marathon?" And the first thing out of their mouth is, "Oh, I can never do that." And as Ford famously said, he who says he can and he who says he cannot, they're both right. So if that fixed mindset is, no, I can never do that, well, you can't argue with that. I guess you're right. You can never do that. But only because you've decided that you can never do that, as opposed to that growth mindset. Hey, that sounds like a great idea. I should try that. So.
And it's you touched on so many points there, and I'm just gonna the last point you made. If I believe I can, I can. If I don't, I won't. Is the narrative that you have running in your head. I talked about storytelling as largely what I help people do, to use stories to call an external audience, an internal employee or team to take action. But that same story is the narrative that's running in your head. I think I can't, so I won't. Or if I think I can, I will.
Yes.
When you get the narrative in your head straight, then you can accomplish anything. And the stories we tell ourselves, we know, can be limiting. And that leads to this idea of what enterprise class companies began doing in the last 10 or 15 years. Companies that have been on the Fortune 500 forever. Kodak, Xerox.
Yes.
And poof, one day, they're not on the Fortune 500. They almost don't exist like they did. I mean, I am an ex-Xerox employee, and before I got to Xerox, when they were an early company making copiers, they were the darling of Wall Street. When I joined Xerox, it was Xerox fumbles the future because the Japanese had come with Canon copiers. Fortunately, I was in the technology side of Xerox, so I didn't have to deal with that bad news. But 10 years later, there was another Fortune magazine that says Xerox, I'll use the same title, I forget what the title was, but it was fumbles the future again, because then the technology company lost all of the technology at the Palo Alto Research Center to Microsoft and Apple. Because that's been happening in historically, and it's become more ascended. Companies get disrupted and simply get knocked off their game, and they're no longer the darling of Wall Street. They're no longer on the Fortune 500. Kodak is selling chemicals today, and that's about it. They're no longer, I have a digital camera in my phone. Why do I need Kodak film?
Yep.
That Kodak had a digital camera long before anyone else. But they were beholden to the film as the cash cow.
Yep.
Companies and people that see the patterns happening in front of them and disrupt themselves before they get disrupted are using the Darwinist theme, adapt or perish.
Exactly. I always look at the psychology of, so going back to what we've said, the why and the how, for me, it's all about communications and about psychology. It's all about understanding why that dog wants that treat, or to understand that that dog wants that treat to begin with. It's not the notion that I want the dog to sit. It's rather understanding the compelling reason that that dog wants that treat. It's to understand what it is that that customer of yours, that prospect, that suspect of yours, what it is that they wish to accomplish by engaging you. So it's understanding their why, and understanding that it's all about them and not about you. So one of the basic pillars of what I talk about is understanding the psychology of people, and understand that a lot of what we do has to do with getting ourselves out of the way and helping our customers get out of their way so that we can conduct business. And we do that through psychology, through understanding human nature, through communications. I'll refer to a lot of psychology, transactional analysis. We'll talk about DISC, personality styles, and so on. And I'll be focused on both the why and the how, and I will want to focus more on the mechanics of, because if at the end of the day, when you look at it, you first have to learn the mechanics of something before you can turn it into an art. And there's my segue.
Thanks for the segue, Frank. And I think that's important, because my name is Arthur, and I shorten it to be Art for a host of reasons. My dad was called Art, so I kind of took his moniker. But just to give you a thumbnail sketch of the work that I will talk about, I believe everything I do in everything we all do, no matter what our role in life or business, revolves around the notion of leadership. If we're willing to accept the mantle of responsibility to do the work, to be a better leader of our family, of our business, of our Cub Scout pack, we'll get that family, that Cub Scout pack, that business to perform better. Because doing the work means, one, that I do the work on myself. The best leaders have a deep well of empathy and intuition, and they do the work to nurture that. And the best leaders are committed to making people around them better than they are, to lifting them up.
Yes.
And that means that they care to listen, to see where the opportunities are and see how they can support those people to make them better at what they do. You have to commit to doing the work. I talk a lot about human-centered design, which is always focused on the other person in the paradigm. Think about them first, and then everything else you do that follows will be in service to them.
Yeah.
I talk about brand storytelling. It's the story of my brand as I project it to the world so people know what I do. My brand narrative is as important to me as well. The origin of my brand, the founding of my business, the story of why I built these various products that talk about brand strategy and brand storytelling and the new media marketing and sales training are the four things that I deliver. But why I do that and how I do that is part of the commitment I've made to do the work, to show that I think brand is representative of the truth of who you are. Story is how you engender trust with your internal employees and your external partners and customers. Marketing, you only do after you have a solid understanding of your brand strategy and brand story. And when you do marketing after you've got command of those things, you've done that upstream work, you'll build a bigger and better, more engaged tribe. And that tribe will rally around your brand, promote your brand, and some of those raving fans will buy from you. And when they do, you're selling. But in that environment, you'll get testimonials when you sell because you're all in it together. You know the narrative of the tribe that you serve. You build products, services, and solutions for them. And it's all about doing the work, and it's all about kind of putting epaulets on your shoulder or braids on your chest, however you want to envision yourself, and standing up to lead the tribe that you serve. That's kind of what I'll be talking about. And like Frank, I believe that much of the things that I believed, I just believed. Now neuroscience tells me why I should have been believing all along.
Yeah.
We all know storytelling has been powerful. A lot of us poo-poo stories because we think Mary Had a Little Lamb, the story of Hansel and Gretel. But neuroscience is a body of work called the neuroeconomics. And those are the neuroscientists that study why we buy things. And some of them actually have done work on storytelling. And they've determined that storytelling has a power to change biology in humans. Now, we've always known, the salesperson that's, data tells and stories sell. It's been an expression that's been around for a long time. Now we know why. Stories sell because we actually have the ability to change the biology of the human to get a hormone of oxytocin, the empathy molecule, to flow through their bloodstream while we're telling them a compelling, thoughtful story.
Exactly.
That's amazing.
And it's ingrained in us, thousands and thousands and thousands of years.
We're wired for it. Yeah.
Exactly.
So look, we're coming up on 40 minutes, Frank.
Yep.
You see, Frank and I love this stuff so much that we'll just talk and talk and talk. So we have to keep a timer running in the background to make sure that we give you a snackable bite. And hopefully you enjoyed what you've heard here at the Frank Art of Business Solutions. Hopefully we're sharing things with you that you can take away and ponder, and that you'll tune in again as we dive into the details and the practical application of these ideas that we're sharing. So thanks for tuning in. I'll tell you how to reach me. The Art of Standing Out can be found at artjones.tv. And that will take you to my website. If you go to about.me/artjones.tv, you'll go to an About Me page that will take you to, I don't know, 8 or 9 different social media platforms that I'm engaged on, where you can get a picture of what makes the brand called Art Jones tick.
And you can reach me, Frank Morales, one of 2 ways, either via email, which is fmorales@sandler.com, or through my LinkedIn page. LinkedIn page is my hub, where you can see all about me. It links to my Twitter account and a couple of other social media platforms. And again, just look for Frank Morales. You'll recognize my face. And again, I help with business development and management training, mentoring, coaching, and training, changing behaviors. I look forward to joining you all again in the future. And back to you, Art.
We're broadcasting live on YouTube and Google Plus right now, but we're archiving this on our respective YouTube channels that you'll find through our Twitter and LinkedIn and all the other social platforms. All will lead to this video. Our intention is to broadcast these live on Fridays at noon Pacific or 3 p.m. Eastern. I'm Pacific, Frank is Eastern. Noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern on Fridays, every Friday. So come join us. Send your questions to either Frank or I. And when we're on live or broadcasting here at the Frank Art of Business Solutions, we'll try to answer some of those questions for you here in our broadcast. So until next time, thanks for tuning in. Thank you, Frank.
Thank you.
Great co-host, man. I have so much fun when we're doing these.
Yeah, we're going to have much more fun.
Fantastic. Okay. Talk to you soon, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.